Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. Basically, today I'm going to do a quick mini review of Resident Evil 3 Remake. Before I start, I hope everybody is staying well, given the current circumstances of what's going on at the moment, and all the best with everything. Anyway, let's get to this. So, I wrote down a few thoughts basically about Resident Evil 3 Remake, given the fact that Remake 2 was so unbelievable. Well, in my opinion, it was unbelievably good. Some issues here and there, but nothing that really let the game down. Now, Resident Evil 3 is a mixed bag. It's both good and bad, and I'll go through some of those points generally. So anyway, graphically, the game does look better than Resident Evil 2. There's definitely some lighting improvements in the environments. Textures just seem like they've been touched up a little bit. The city looks very impressive, and the environment's looking destroyed and decayed due to the outbreak of the T-virus. But the game's pacing is very, very fast, and I'll delve into that as we go through it. So the events of Resident Evil 3 Remake take place before and after 2, and obviously you'll see story events such as Kendo, the gun shop owner, and Marvin, the police officer. You'll see basically where their stories begin and obviously where they end up in Resident Evil 2 Remake. And obviously Brad Vickers plays a minor role in this. He has a better send-off in this particular game, I think, than the original. He gets... Well, I mean, spoilers. I should have said spoilers at the beginning of this, but literally he gets bitten and turns into a zombie, essentially. But it all links into how Marvin gets to the point he is in Resident Evil 2, due to the fact that Brad Vickers essentially bites him, and it was quite cool to see. Kendo's story it's got more heart than the original Resident Evil 2, because Kendo's not even in Resident Evil 3, the 99 version of the game. You sort of see where he starts and where he ends up, and his story is quite tragic, because obviously if you've played Resident Evil 2 Remake, you'll know that it's essentially he kills himself and his daughter. You hear the gunshots, but you don't see it, so it is still speculation. But given what happens to the city later on, I suppose it doesn't really make any difference, but it's quite a sad story. So the physics on this game have been dialed back substantially, I would say. For instance, when you knock a zombie down, they don't seem to interact with the environment, such as the walls. In 2, if you knocked a zombie over, if they hit something, it would be physically in line with, say, the wall, hit the wall and bounce. Whereas in Resident Evil 3, they don't seem to. There just seems to be some. The interactive with the environments isn't. It just isn't there. It's not as. I can't think of the right word to use. It's just the physics just aren't as good. Same as you can't blow the hands off in Resident Evil 3, from what I've played of it. And I'm on my second playthrough on hardcore at the moment. Whereas in Resident Evil 2, if a zombie's reaching out for you, you can blow their hands off, and it just makes it easier for them not to be able to grab you and eat and bite you, essentially. The zombies are not as bullet spongy as well as Resident Evil 2, so they don't seem to. I mean, in Resident Evil 2, you can unload an entire clip before a zombie goes down. But that might also be because I was aiming for the head. I suppose I always aim for the legs nowadays and stuff, so it doesn't don't use as many bullets up that way. Jill's got a dodge mechanic. It's the same thing she had in the 99 game, but it works much better in this game. It actually works. In Resident Evil 3, the original was really hit and miss when it would work and when it wouldn't. So that makes it easier to perform dodges, and if you do a perfect dodge, you spin around and you can shoot them in the head or the legs, wherever you want to, essentially. So it makes it easier to avoid them. But as I said, the story is at breakneck pace. I mean, when this game starts, it just doesn't let up. The first hour is just relentless. I mean, the thing is, you play the game, before you know it, the game's over. It's that brief, it's that quick. And obviously you don't get to appreciate the environments while you're going through them, because you're going through the environments so quickly. The most intense moment of this game is when you have to put the power on in the bug-ridden power plant. It's creepy and it's gross, and if they infect you, you have to use a herb to get rid of the parasite, which she decides to vomit up, which is lovely. And it's a really good section of the game, but it's literally only, I mean, I cleared it in anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And that section in the original game was one of the later sections. It wasn't one of the first sections in the game. Right, so let's get on to Nemesis. I can see why they didn't call this game Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Because Nemesis, although he's somewhat cool, to be honest with you, ultimately he's a massive disappointment, Nemesis. He doesn't have the characterization that he has as such in the original game. He doesn't stalk you that much. And when he does, don't get me wrong, he's got the tools to do way more damage than, say, Mr. X. And it can be fear-inducing, but it doesn't have the same feel. He's very safe. This particular Nemesis in the new game feels very safe compared to the original 99 game. And again, he doesn't... I mean, the dodge mechanic makes it easier to avoid him, for sure. But he's only literally in scripted events, so he chases you 2 or 3 times at the beginning of the game. And then literally after, he just turns up as a boss. And although the boss fights are kind of fun, like the flamethrower boss, and then the boss battle in front of the clock tower, he just doesn't have the... Alright, let's say this. The boss fights in Resident Evil 3 with Nemesis are probably a little bit more intense in some ways than, say, Resident Evil 2 with Mr. X. But this Nemesis just isn't... He isn't the same Nemesis you faced in the original game. He doesn't invoke that fear. Which is a shame, because you think it would be very easy to just combine Mr. X and just stick him on some steroids and he would be terrifying. But he just doesn't invoke the same fear, which is a shame, because he could have been so much more than what he was. Areas of this game have been cut massively. I mean, this game, I cleared this game in the first playthrough was about 13 hours, but that was because I was looking around for Easter eggs and that kind of stuff, and obviously you can unlock as you play through it later on, and there are extra content, replays, new weapons, defensive items, stuff like that. But the clock tower is completely cut. You have your first boss battle, I think it's the second boss battle, in front of the clock tower. You don't go in the clock tower. There's no dead factory. There's no graveyard. I believe you even go to the park in the original game, if my memory's recalling correctly. So that's a shame in itself. And and there's no puzzles. Well, right, let me see if there's some minor puzzles. There's maybe 2 or 3 I can think of, if that, off the top of my head. But they're not puzzles like you'd find in, say, any other Resident Evil games. So they seem to have... They're sort of back on that action trail, which I would be cautious to stay on, because that produced Resident Evil 6, which some people like, some people despise. It just depends on how... I've never played it, so I played the demo and I wasn't impressed, so I never touched it. But, you know, that's anyone's personal opinion, I suppose. The sewer area is good, but it's just like a condensed version of Resident Evil 2. You face the Gamma Hunters, which are actually really, really impressive looking, and they're quite threatening, but they don't really do much. You shoot them a couple of times with a grenade launcher or a shotgun, and as long as you don't get close to them, because it's a one-hit kill, basically, they just eat you. It's such a short section. It's like you can clear it in 15-20 minutes. And at the end of that section, obviously there's a boss battle where you have to face Nemesis with a flamethrower. And once you get the dodge move down, the dodge move mechanic down, it's really easy most of the time to avoid Nemesis. The hardest bit, to be honest, is when Nemesis is chasing you. You've got zombies trying to grab you as well, or when he fires the rocket launcher, which can be a bit of a pain in the ass. So your enemies are the hunters. Sorry, still in order. Zombies, hunter gammas, the ones in the sewers. They do also appear in the second to last section of the game, where you're having to do puzzles under the hospital. There's a couple that appear in that part of the game. There's a couple of lickers that make a cameo at the police station, and they're still probably as good as they were in Resident Evil 2, and they're even harder to kill on hardcore mode, as I found out in the footage I will probably be showing in the video. The pale heads that appear in the hospital are really, really cool. Again, for the last section of the game, they are really, really threatening. They remind me of those things from Resident Evil 4, I think it is. But again, they're not really in it that much, so, you know. Voice acting is a massive step up from the 99 game. Obviously, it's going to be, given the difference, 21 years later, the technology we've got today is going to be far superior in every aspect, I would imagine. But again, Jill is really, really well acted. The voice actor, the actual the graphics, the way she looks, all the characters feel far more real, and they behave and react in far more real ways. Carlos is probably the most improved character of the lot. He feels real and gritty. He's got crazy hair, but it really does kind of suit the personality of the actual character. Mikhail, or is it Mikhail, is very, very good. Again, he's a kind of a gruff mercenary. Nikolai is as devious as ever, even compared to the 99 game. Although you never really find out who he's working for. He's essentially just left at the end of the game. So you could speculate that did he have a backup plan? Did he have another helicopter or another way out of the city? But you really never really find that out, because in the original game he had branching paths, so the stories would be slightly different. Like in one, Barry would pick you up. In another story, Nikolai would get killed in one version of that story event. So it just depends. Tyrell gets a bit more screen time. He's pretty much barely a cameo in the original 99 game. So, and he again, he goes out in a way that gives him a better send-off than the original game. And there's another character that it would have been interesting to actually find out a bit about him, but as soon as you meet him as Jill, within a couple of seconds, Nikolai kills him. So you get a bit of backstory about that character, but that was a bit of a disappointment in some ways. The RPD section is probably it depends how you look at it. It's probably for me the best part of the game, which is kind of, I guess you say, a bit stupid really, given the fact I've already played through that section in RE2 remake. But it was cool to see the tie-ins. Obviously, I've said about Marvin and Brad Vickers, the damage done to the police station. You find out now who it was. Carlos that blew up the wall in the police lockers room. But you never find out who did who blew up the wall at the top of the second floor, because that wall's sealed for some bizarre reason in RE3. So nothing major, but I would be quite curious to know who destroyed that. Again, from a disappointing standpoint, I was really hoping that was going to be Nemesis chasing Jill through the station. But Jill's she doesn't go there in this particular version of the game. Unlike the original, it's a Carlos only section. So that's a bit of a shame. But I did find myself, at the end of that section, I did find myself wanting to play Resident Evil 2. Because I know these areas, I've been through these doors, but I did enjoy the way Carlos's reactions to saying things like, "This is a weird door," or there's the one that says "keep out," which is the same door that Leon then later on, when he arrives at the station, goes under the the security shutter that says "keep out," and Carlos is like, "Yeah, okay, I'll stay out." And I love that the little tie-ins where he says the "welcome Leon" bit and stuff. And you've got all the codes are the same codes that you use in RE2. So that's quite cool. Although someone's obviously gone back round and refilled all those lockers at some point, because you empty them out before you leave the station. And even the shotgun isn't in the security weapons locker room in the game. So that was quite a bit of a chuckle. That made me chuckle a bit, to be honest, because it was just like, who's been going around filling this place up? But there's nobody in it. Literally, where's Marvin as well? You see him run into the police station, but you never actually meet the guy again. So, and I think that's pretty much the RPD bit done, really. Yeah, I just found myself wanting to go back and play RE2. So I'm probably going to go back and do that at some point. Right, the last section of the game is probably the most improved part of the game. It's got added tension from the hunters, and they're in it, but again, they appear later on in the game, and they're quite threatening. Actually, I haven't encountered them in my hardcore playthrough as of yet, but they're a challenge to take on. But literally, all the backtracking in this game is basically Carlos goes through an area, then Jill will go through some areas the same afterwards, because you have to find a vaccine for it, just like in the original game, in the hospital. And obviously you find this guy, there's a doctor you're looking for called Dr. Bard, which to my recollection, I don't think was in the original game. I don't quite remember. I don't think he was. But so basically the last section of the game is basically in the hospital. So you get the vaccine, Jill then goes through it, but she's literally going through it to unlock the lockers. So you're just backtracking so you can pick up extra weapons. And obviously the Magnum is in the hospital as well. So that makes the game substantially easier, I would have thought. Because the pale heads at the end, they take about 4 to 5, alright, so 3 to 5 shotgun shells to go down. And they'll empty a clip of your pistol and still be coming at you. So, and they do way more damage than standard zombies tend to do. The bit when you bring the vaccine back to Jill, you have to do like a hospital. You have to defend the entrance to the hospital. I thought it was alright. It was kind of enjoyable, but it is an action thing. There's the majority of the time in this game, you will not run out of ammo. As long as you're reasonably cautious, you will always find ammo. It isn't as ammo intensive in terms of how scarce the ammo is in comparison to, say, RE2 remake. And literally, that's the once you defend Jill, and then you switch back to Jill for the final area of the game, which is again, you go through some lifts underground. Down on some lifts, or elevators if you're American, I suppose. And you travel about, and you get to this area that's all dark, and literally Nikolai is dropping these like crates in your way, and you have to get past him, and then chase him. And basically, there's one really good ambush with zombies and gamma hunters mixed in, that come from you from the front and from the behind you. So it makes the game a bit intense. There are intensive moments in the game, and obviously the hunters are also mixed in there as well. They can do you massive damage, especially on hardcore, which I'm playing at the moment. And they sort of, as you progress through it, you find out a bit more about the story and stuff. But you again, Nikolai's motive is he's working for another company, but you don't ever find out who. Why? I'm imagining it's just because he's a scumbag and he wants money at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean and that basically leads you on to the final area, which is Nest 2, which is really cool looking, but it really isn't anything you haven't seen before. It's very similar to the first part of Nest in RE2 remake, under Raccoon City again. That's where you encounter the Paleheads for the first time, and again, that's where you fight Nemesis for his final two fights. You have to fight him, where he's like running round. He does the same thing. So in the clock tower section boss fight, you shoot him, he comes out, you dodge, you shoot him, then he runs around, up buildings and stuff, and you have to knock him off the buildings, then keep shooting him, and eventually. At that point is when he infects Jill and she has to go to the hospital. He does the same thing at the end, the last fight in the game. He does the same thing, but you've got like electrical like towers or something, and literally he jumps on one, and Carlos points out which one he's on, and obviously then you shoot it, and you have zombies coming out of the tunnels and the grounds and stuff. So they do explode in some weird ways as well. When you put them down, they sort of just disappear into blood. Which is kind of weird. And then literally again, Nikolai. So I'm a bit out of sequence now of what I'm saying, but again, Nikolai takes the vaccine before you do the final boss fight with Nemesis, or second to last boss fight. And then you fight the boss, and then obviously Carlos goes after him, and then you then go, after you've done the boss fight, you go after Carlos again and Nikolai. And then Nemesis turns up for one last, kind of like William Burke at the end of the original RE2 game. And even the remake, I think he becomes a massive blob of tentacles and shit and everything. And you have to just use the railgun, which is quite funny to watch, because she picks up this railgun. This gun is like something that, you need 17 people to carry it. It looks that heavy, but it looks really cool the way she just picks it up, aims it at him, just blasts him. But then you've got this little mini game where you've got to it runs out of charge. You have to do this a few times. You have to put the gun down and then shoot him in his little pink bulb type bits on his body, and that puts him down. And you have to then push the batteries back in to recharge to recharge the actual gun. So that's quite cool. And then eventually, after you do that several times, then you shove it in his mouth and finish him off once and for all. When I think about it, it's very brief. This game feels like DLC. That, or it just feels like the developers are in a hurry to get this game out, because it doesn't have the tension that RE2 has. It's got some inventory management, but it doesn't. You're not you're not constantly thinking, all right, I've got to get past those 2 zombies, then get up the stairs, and then Mr. X appears and completely cocks your plan up. You're like, oh, for Christ, yeah. So, but in fact, I think the dodge mechanic, if they put in RE2 Remake, would probably make the game easier, because it's such a handy little move to have. But I'm going off on a tangent. So basically, this is a really flawed remake. There is some dogs in it as well, from a very brief section, and you do bump into Dario. Again, does the same thing, climbs into a container, locks himself in. That's it. You never see him again. That's literally the cameo he's in. Whereas in the original game, you start off in that section. He climbs into the container, and then you have to come back to that section later on to pick something up, and you find his dead body, and obviously the zombies have eaten him. There's just none of that. I mean, the voice acting is superb. Like, the characters are just, as I said, are way more believable, and everything they say sounds more realistic. But it's just so brief. It's as if they was on like some type of time schedule. I imagine they probably were. Most companies that make this sort of thing are, but it's a very flawed remake. It passes so quickly that you wonder what happened to the game you just started playing. So the 99 game, in a lot of ways, in terms of what happens, is probably the better game. But the remake is a far better way for modern players, or anyone that wasn't even born in, say, 1999. It's a much more approachable game, so you can play this, there's a bit more fun, whereas in the original game, I'd say the original game is probably harder as well. I mean, when I last played Nemesis, I couldn't even do it on hard with a pistol outside the police station. Was the first section, so the game's a lot more difficult. I think this should have been DLC for RE2 Remake, personally. Say £20, £25, or whatever your American equivalent is, and obviously wherever you are in the world, essentially. But it's got some great ideas. This game really has some good ideas, but everything is played so safely that it never really comes out of its shell. It never really... You want it to go further, but it never does. It just stays in a safe, sort of approachable sort of game where you can predict a lot of what's going to happen. The experience where you're playing it is really, really solid. And as I said, the voice acting and everything I thought was really, really good. And as I said, I love the RPD section. I love the tie-ins they've done to make both games fit a complete narrative is really, really cool. It's just that Resident Evil 3 just needed to have a bit more passion put into the game, I feel. But that's my rant over anyway. So but you can have it's on Green Man Gaming. You can pick it up for about £38, which is still maybe a little bit overpriced, but £38 isn't that expensive in the grand scheme of things. Compared to Steam, it's £50. So I'd recommend it. But if you're not a hardcore Resident Evil fan, then just wait for a discount if it's something you know you'll like in the future. And casual players might be put off by the length because it is substantially short. I mean, I bought it on a Friday. Might have been a Friday, and I'd cleared it by Sunday. So, but it really does depend how many hours you play of a game each day, I suppose, or over a duration of a week. I did it in a couple of days, but obviously everybody's got their own. Everyone has their own different way they live their life and how they play games and stuff. But anyway, I'm going to stop going on now and say yeah, that was my opinion. A very good game, but played way too safe. It's just a little bit of unfortunate. Say, for instance, as I said, you can't blow the hands off in this. can't blow the hands off. I knew you were going to do that, you prick.
Right. Big, warm, RPD welcome.
Though I will admit, some of the sections playing as Carlos in the RPD are actually more difficult than playing as Leon or Claire, such as the locker room in the showers. But obviously there are some minor differences, like for instance, a lot of the door bits that you climb in that aren't here yet, like for instance the box isn't there, or the pallet you climb, that's not there for some bizarre reason. So has someone gone round again after these events and locked all the doors again? Which seems kind of weird. Because when Leon and Claire visit here, they both climb over a pallet here. And I think that window's smashed as well, if I recall correctly. That's what I loved, the little tie-backs to the RPD and the things that go on in it and stuff. Also, I love the fact that all the lockers are the same.
There's something real nasty in here. I don't know what it is.
Something nasty? Alright. I'll take a look with the cameras. Watch your six.
Fairly sure that's the door Claire goes through to, is it, pretty sure it is, from what I remember. I've only done Res 2 twice on normal, so I've got to do it on hardcore mode at some point. nuts. Shut up. Make sure he's dead. Seems to be a lot more zombies in this area than when you play RE2. Hello. Look at that, another one. See what I mean? The way they die, they don't take away, the punishment they take is nowhere near as much. Here's the thing that I always find fascinating, is that Jill runs through the station in the original game, and in this version of the game, Carlos runs through it. Had they known that you could get out of this area so much easier by going through the sewers instead of going through the hell of the actual city itself? Again, it's a nice little callback to RE2 again. Just the lock you unlock. Jesus. I can't remember the code.
Yeah. Welcome, Leon. Bet you had a kick-ass first day. Kinda fucked up shooting cops.
Where's that liquor? anyone that's familiar with the original Resident Evil 2 will know this is the original save music from that particular game.
If cameras killed those things, I'd be set.
They really have done a really faithful sort of reimagining of this particular area, because if you play the original game, they've literally done it one to one. It just looks identical. I remember hiding in here on Resident Evil 2 when Mr. X was stomping around. Where's that liquor? I'm sure that liquor appears soon. So I need that to get the key. Right. Oh, maybe I was wrong. No, so that's not where the key is then. My question is, how did the liquors get here in the first place? So the question, as I said before, that has always made me wonder, it's not a major, particularly big question, but it's, as you go up here, everybody knows now that...
Carlos, the STARS office is up ahead.
Copy that.
So obviously you go in there, Carlos does his thing, blows up the wall, sorted.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Why is it blocked?
But when you go up here in RE2, there's a zombie here, he's about to die. Oh, again. Bitchin'. So yeah, up here is the takes you to that statue. We have to get the last emblem, and you have to put C4 explosives on it to blow it up. That's what we need. Okay, he's not part of the game. Okay. So here, there's a big hole here in RE2. Again, it's not a major question, but who made it? Why? Well, I suppose you know why, but who, you know, does somebody just explode the wall at some point? Because they don't explain it in this. As I said, it's a really minor question. It's a question nonetheless. Behind there as well, because that's never really opened, even in Resident Evil 2. Are these weird random questions that no one cares about? I do like the fact that when someone says stay out of this room or stay out of this area, Carlos actually listens to it, whereas Leon and Claire don't tend to.
Better not.
Right, so before we'll do that, we'll go back down to the locker room. They kill you a hell of a lot easier than doing the other game. Christ, this thing's tough. Jeez. Thank you. Dick. Oh, hello. Nice to meet you. Fall, you prick. Obviously, if you've played 2, you'll know that this is incomplete. So you can't do a line here. A couple of bits and bobs you can grab.
Mine now.
I reckon this 2 would have been a lot easier if you could just use assault rifle bullets all the time.
Come the papa.
And the funny thing here, the shotgun should be there, but it's not. Wonder where it is. And these aren't even full either. In 2, these are all refilled again. So, very interesting. Oh god, what was that? That scared the crap out of me. Oh, wrong way, wrong way.
Carlos, I've hit a dead end with the terminal here. Gonna head your way.
Copy that. Dr. Bard.
Oh, thank God. Do you know how long I've been trying to reach somebody?
Don't worry, we're gonna get you out of there. Just tell me where you are.
I'm trapped in a goddamn hospital, surrounded by every kind of abomination. Look, just send in stars. They're gonna know what to do.
No, negative. RPD's overrun too.
Then figure it out! Umbrella's gone crazy. They're killing all the researchers. I am the only one who knows how to make the vaccine to stop the zombies. So you can either sit there with your dick in your hand or send somebody who's capable of getting me the hell out of here.
I like him already.
Yeah, you would. You heard what he said. We can't turn him over to the company.
That's not our call to make. That's Mihail's call. And I'm gonna check the computer, see if I can trace the doc's location. This will take some time.
Trace, he's at the hospital. He's just said he's at the hospital. Oh, I'm dead as a dodo soon. Look at my health, man. Oh. Access that in 2 as well. System as a herb. Oh great, a red. That's no use. Oh, thank God for that. Thank you, Rebecca Chambers. Brian Irons, huh? That's actually where Carlos contacts Joe in the original game.
Is that Jill in the front row?
And that's the original photo from the original game. Pretty sure this is Albert Wesker's desk as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah, what's up? Derailed. Was anyone hurt?
Jill?
Ah, shit. Wait, what? Jill! Jill, what happened? Jill, come in! T, I gotta go.
Do what you gotta. I'll take care of Bard.
Carlos? Come in. Carlos? Damn it. I guess I'm out of range.